So, hi, I'm Sophia Haber Brock, and welcome back to Sophia's Studio. Tonight, I'm joined by owner of A Shared Universe podcast studio, star of the AMC reality series Comic Book Man, podcaster, webmaster, actor, basically a man of many hats, Ming Chen. So, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. What's up, Sophia? Thank you. It's an honor being in Sophia's studio.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm finally getting to interview you. And it sounds like you have so many cool experiences and you've achieved so much in your career, so I'm glad I'm getting to get to talk to you and learn more about, your story.
Oh yeah, fire away. Ask anything. I've been very lucky for sure.
Mhm. So, how did your love for comic books begin?
I think my love of comic books began when I was a little kid. I think most little kids get into comic books and superheroes. Um, and even if you go to see little kids, most little kids now wear something like a Spider-Man shirt, or they have like Captain America shoes or something. So I got into superheroes very early on in life, maybe 3 or 4. Um, Maybe around the ages of 3, 4, like, I knew who Superman and Batman were, but I had I couldn't read back then, I could only look at the pictures. But when, I was in 1st grade when I was 6, one of my fellow classmates handed me a copy of The Avengers, the comic book. Um, and I remember he handed it to me, and it was a comic book with drawings on it, and there was drawings inside, and I kinda realized, I was like, "What?" I was like, "What is this?" And, it's a comic book, they're superheroes, and there's a cool story in here. I was like, "Oh, wow, this is cool." And I remember reading it cover to cover, and I'm like, my whole life changed. I was like, "Okay, this is not Jack and Jill go up the hill. This is not Dr. Seuss. This is not like Hop on Pop. This is a story with superheroes saving the world, and then there are bad guys in here, and there's a whole storyline, and there's all this really cool art inside." I was like, "Wow, this is it blew my mind." I think I remember reading that thing cover to cover, and there were ads for cartoons, the Saturday morning cartoons, and there were things that you could cut out and send in money and buy. You could buy toys and stuff, and I was like, it was like it was like, wow, like reading became fun, I think, at that point. Up until then, school was not that fun, and, I mean, I think on that day, my life definitely changed, and I was like, "Where do I get more of these comic book things?" And slowly I started trying to get old copies and tried to beg my mom for quarters so I could buy comic books from the drugstore, and, yeah, it definitely started from there, and it just went on through my childhood, and then I got into them in high school, fell out of them for a little bit in college, but then I got way back into them in college, and I've never stopped since.
Wow, that's so cool how, it just started from a love that's so young, and now it's, a huge
Um,
part of your life.
yeah, and, I love, initially, yeah, the comic books are for kids, but they stick with you through your whole life. You read them when you get older, and then I still read them now as an adult, and I think they're even cooler now than they were back then. And but now it's cool because they have all the movies and the TV shows, so everything that I used to read on the page is now coming to life, in live action format, and or some of it is animated. But it's cool that what once used to just exist on a page in 2D is now 3D, and there are explosions and different dimensions and hexes and all this cool stuff. It's pretty awesome.
What are some of your favorite comics?
When I was growing up, I love the Avengers. So, and you might ask this later, who's your favorite superhero? I can't really pick one. I like the teams. I like the X-Men. I like the Avengers where you get a whole bunch of them. I guess I might be maybe that's a little greedy. I don't know, but why take one superhero when you can get a whole team of them? You get Captain America and Iron Man and the Hulk and Thor and Black Widow and and Scarlet Witch. It's yeah, that's I think I love the Avengers because that was the first comic I ever read. I always loved Spider-Man because he had cool powers. He fought crime in a real city in New York City, but I really like that, as he's fighting crime, he's always throwing out these quips, like, he's always making fun of it the villains, and he's being very comical, and I was like, "Wow, okay, you can save the world, and you can be a comedian at the same time." So I always thought that was, That was cool. I love Batman growing up. That, started with the TV show and then the comics, and then the comics got kinda darker and more adult, and the villain, like the Joker, got really kinda dark, and I like that as I was growing up. Um, yeah, those are 3 that I read. I really like Hawkeye. I like Hawkeye. He doesn't really have any superpowers, but he's really good with the bow and arrow. He looks really good in purple, and, there's a couple storylines where he saves New Jersey, so, how can I not love that?
Yeah, relatable. And it sounds like you kind of, like, relate to Spider-Man. You were saying what did you say about that?
He can fight crime. Before he got his superpowers, he was a high school kid that got bullied, and nobody really noticed him, but he was a smart guy, so, he was good to his Aunt May, um, and his Uncle Ben for the most part. And, I also relate to him because even though he fights crime, he doesn't get paid for it. He has to go and get a regular job as a photographer, and his boss is mean to him. Like, I can relate to all that, but he's still he's kind of a comedian at heart. As he's fighting crime, he's always throwing out these funny, one-liners, and he's always trying to be funny about it. So, I think that's just something that I really related to him.
Hmm. So you're a comedian, like, by day. Are you a crime fighting at night, or
Um I don't think I have the stomach to fight crime. Like, I
Oh,
wanna fight crime at heart, but I don't have the skills to fight crime. I guess, although I think, that's why Batman's one of my favorite characters. Like, if I had a bunch of money like Bruce Wayne, like, I could work out really hard. I could use the money to build, like, a cool bat suit and get gadgets and get, like, a cool Batmobile, and
next.
potentially anybody could be Batman, I guess, if they had the drive to fight crime and they had a bunch of money, they could. But, you don't see real life Batman in real life, and I think that's what makes, the comic book Batman so cool, is that he was so driven to fight crime, and he has a code of conduct. Like, he never kills, he doesn't use a gun. I always thought that was cool. Yeah, so I don't fight crime. I'm not even really a comedian, I just make fun of my friends by day, so that doesn't really make me a comedian. But I think it's all those qualities that you strive for that makes you love the comic book characters so much, is that you see a character that kinda embodies the person that you wanna be.
Hmm. So also, like, technology is a big part of your life and, like, the internet. So when you were young so how did you get into technology? Because when you were young, like, it was kinda new and, like, cutting edge, like
Yeah, there was no internet. I'm really old. There was no internet. There were, like, digital calculators, I think, was as advanced as it got. And then, we didn't have Xboxes and PlayStation 5s. We had Ataris, and we played Pong, and, we went to the arcade and put quarters into arcade machines and played Pac-Man. I think I think my life changed when my dad brought home the very first, Apple Macintosh computer in 1984, and I don't even know why he bought it. I guess he thought it would be a good learning tool. Maybe he wanted to learn on it. I wasn't really sure, but I remember he bought it. He brought it home. I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" As like, "This is a computer." Like, before that, there wasn't even, there was no mouse back then. It was one of the first computers to have a mouse and, like, a graphical interface. Before that, it was green text on a black screen. You had to type commands. It wasn't user friendly, so, it changed my life. All of a sudden, I could make artwork on, like, a very primitive program. It's called Mac Paint, and, you could write little primitive programs to play, real simple games, and, yeah, I remember when he brought that thing home, it just changed my life. Like, I would spend hours in front of that thing just trying to make it do stuff, and then as they got more and more advanced, I tried to keep up with them, and, yeah, it was fun. The early computers were fun. It was you and, program or maybe a game, but I think when the internet was invented, where you can play games with people from around the world, or even when you could play games with 5 other people in the same room, but they were on different computers, like, that changed my life, like, completely. I loved being able to interact with other people in different time zones in different parts of the country, and I think that kinda got me into, I was like, "Okay, now I'm talking to all these people, how can I bring them all together?" So I really got into, like, online community building, and, I thought that I thought it was cool. Growing up a nerd, like, I didn't have a lot of nerd friends, but with stuff like the internet and, social media, all of a sudden, there's no shortage of other nerds that you can be friends with. I think I really like that part.
Mm. So what were you doing at that time? Like, where were you in your life when the internet became such a big part of it?
Oh, man, alright, I was in college. I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, pretty good school, and, once you got there, they were like, "Well, this is the" I was like, "What's this internet thing?" They're like, "Oh, we can give you this thing called email. Like, you can send messages on your computer to other people, and they get it on their computers." I'm Before that, we would just have to write on pen and paper, and it took a long time, and I was like, "Wait, I can just type it and hit this send button, and they'll get it seconds later?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Whoa, this is cool." So I started trying to find all my other friends to see who else had email addresses, and I would that it just fascinated me that I could communicate with people that quickly, and, I think it went from there. Yeah, I thank goodness, our college had a very good infrastructure. It had a very good computer lab. I had this big giant computer lab that later on I ended up working there for a couple years helping doing tech support. Um, but being there, being at college, learning about the internet, it was the first time I saw a web browser. It was the first time I saw a website. It's the first time I learned how to build a website, and this was back in 94, 95. So this was pretty early. And, yeah, once I learned how immediate everything was, I think it was very life-changing for sure. And that I couldn't even dream doing that we could do this though. Isn't this cool? Like, we can talk to each
Yeah,
other.
crazy.
You're way across town, and, we can talk to each other in real time, and it gets recorded, and then we can upload, and millions of people can watch this later. I love that so much. I love that stuff like this exists.
Yeah. It's crazy how much technology has evolved. Like,
Um,
you're saying, like, you couldn't even imagine email, and then now it's, like, part of our everyday lives. It's so
yeah, but the only time I saw anything like this was on, like, cartoons and, in sci-fi, where you could talk to another person across a computer screen. So that's where I first saw it. So now, I still feel like I live in, like, Star Wars or Star Trek whenever we do stuff like this. It
yeah.
reminds me of watching old sci-fi shows.
Yeah, my dad really likes Star Trek, so I watch it with him sometimes, and he always tells me, like, "Oh, all these technology," and, like, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
kinda cool.
it all evolved from, like, from Star Trek, iPhones, things like that. It all started as a dream,
Yeah.
science fiction, and then it became reality. I think that's really cool.
Hmm. So after college, what was your first, like, project? Like, what did you
I
do?
So in college, that's where I got connected with Kevin Smith. I made a Clerks fan website. I was just a fan. I needed to channel my fandom into something, and I was learning how to build websites, so I was like, "Oh, well, I'll build a Clerks website just for fun." I wanted to meet other fans of Clerks, and none of my friends, that I had, like, in real life would watch it because it was in black and white. So
Mm,
I was like, "Okay, I'll reach out to the world through the web, through websites, and see if I could find other people who have seen this movie." Because I wanted someone to talk to about it. To me, it was like, imagine seeing, like, a Marvel movie or just seeing, like, a really good movie and nobody else had seen it, so you can't talk to them about it.
mm.
That's what it felt like. I was like, and I was like, "I need to talk to somebody about this. This movie is so cool." I built a website and I reached out to people, and that's how I met other Clerks fans. And, and then one day Kevin Smith saw it and he just emailed me. He was like, "Hey man, I like what you did. Give me a call tomorrow." And he gave me his phone number, and he ended up hiring me through all that later on. Um, but I built that while in college, and then after I graduated, I went and I got a real job. I got a job where I had to wear a tie, I had to wear a button-down shirt, I had to take the train. I was in Washington, DC, and I was still I got a job working on websites, which was cool because I was one of the first. I got into websites and the internet really early on, so I got hired pretty quickly. But I was working on stuff that it was kind of boring. It was for the government, and it was not super exciting. So I did that by day, but by night I would go home and I would work on stuff for Kevin. So I kind of felt like Batman where I lived 2 lives. Like by day I worked the boring day job with the salary and everything. but by night I went and did stuff for Kevin Smith.
Wow,
So,
a real life superhero.
yeah, I didn't wasn't really fighting crime. I was just kinda helping out a guy that I really admired, and I was kinda I guess I was living kind of a dual life, but I liked doing it that way, and I didn't really have a lot of free time, I guess, but, by night, I was doing stuff that I really loved. By day, I was doing stuff that I didn't really love so much, and to have that contrast, I think made me do a better job on on everything really, but I think I really was able to pour my heart and soul into the stuff I did for Kevin because I appreciated the opportunity. Um, so that's why I tell people, like, initially when you're starting out, you might have to go get a boring day job to pay for the stuff that you're really passionate about. And it's not really such a bad thing because you gain an appreciation for the stuff that you really wanna do when you're not doing the thing that you don't really wanna do, I guess. So I tell everyone, it's okay, go get a day job for a while, especially if you need money to fund a film or a short or to go to film school or something like that. Yeah, it's okay to go get the boring day job. You might have to wear a suit and tie. You might have to commute. You might have a boss like Peter Parker's boss who yells at you all the time, but, you gotta suffer a little bit before you get to the good stuff.
Mm. What was that like when Kevin saw your website? Like, what that's crazy that, like,
Yeah,
your idol, like
it was awesome. Like, when I was building the site and I launched it, I was hoping that maybe by some miracle he would just see it. I just wanted him to see it, maybe send me an email going, "Hey, I saw what you did. This is Kevin Smith. I created the movie. Great job." That's all I wanted. And he went above and beyond that, and I was like, "Hey, can you build me more websites for my future movies, for my production company, for anything I do from now on? Can you help me with my internet presence?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." But yeah, it was mind blowing. Like I knew Kevin lived in New Jersey. I knew he he made Clerks with a very low budget. But to me, he was a guy who got a movie onto a movie. Like, he was a filmmaker. He got a movie into a real movie theater. So to me, he was like Hollywood. To me, he was as big as Spielberg or George Lucas because he had made a movie that I really loved and it put it on a big screen. So to me, yeah, he was definitely an idol and somebody I looked up to. But initially when he contacted me, or even before, I just saw him as, all right. He probably lives in Hollywood now, right? He's got a big giant mansion, and he's making a ton of money, and he's like in the Hollywood system. It's all glamorous. I didn't know that he stayed in New Jersey, and he wanted to keep those roots, and he still had to fight for film projects, especially after Mallrats and all his future movies. I didn't know that until I met him later on. So, um, and now that when I realized that he still had to fight for everything, that made him even cooler in my eyes. But for him to actually email me, and then the next day he gave me his phone number. So the next day I called him, and we talked about building the website. He told me he loved what I did. We kind of plotted out the future of its internet presence. That day, I think it was January in 1996. It was so long ago. But when he told me to call him, it was as if like Martin Scorsese was like, "Hey man, can you call me tomorrow?" Like, that's to me, that's how big it was. So
wow.
it was pretty mind blowing. Um, I think now, this is before Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I think now you can just tweet people that you like. If you like a filmmaker, or you
Yeah.
can even tweet Kevin. Sometimes Kevin replies. You never know who's gonna reply. Now it's a lot easier to reach, people that you admire or your heroes, but back then it wasn't so easy.
Sorry, 1 second. I have
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
So, what was your first so you started working on the website and stuff for Kevin. So when did you start, like, collaborating with him in other ways?
So 96 was when we put up, it was the View Askew website for his production company. I built sites for all his movies after that, Chasing Amy, Dogma, a whole bunch of other ones after that. Um, but I was still kind of doing that on the side as I worked a real full-time day job. It wasn't until 2002 when he hired me full time. Between there, I launched his online store for him. Like, there was no online, like, where stuff there was no online home where you could buy Jane Silent Bob merchandise. And I remember I saw him, and he's like, "Hey, how would you feel about getting the store, your comic book store, and all this stuff online?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, we'll put it on the internet. People can buy stuff with their credit card on the internet. All you have to do is mail it to them." And I was like, "Man, if you do that, you'll probably make like $1 million or something." And I helped him launch that, and we did make $1 million. So that was that was pretty cool. Or I helped him make $1 million. But shortly after that, he was like, "Hey, you're doing all this stuff." He hired me full time in 2002, and that's how I got to New Jersey, which was also life changing. Got my first I got my first taste of like New Jersey pizza. Started eating pork roll, and then I started meeting all these cool people. I fell in love with the Jersey Shore in New Jersey, so that's when I moved here in 2002. So it's almost been 20 years, and it was cool. I got an office at Kevin's, his office complex in Red Bank.
Yeah.
I had my own office, and I got to work with him directly, and I got to go down. The comic book shop was there. It was pretty cool. Coming from as a fan, not that long, a couple years before, to actually becoming an employee was pretty cool. It was a big jump, but
Yeah.
I think it's something that every fan dreams of. I would imagine. So it happened for me. So that was cool. And yeah, from there, I worked on, I built the webs more, established more of an online presence. We would throw fan events that, these massive kind of these big fan events that would take, would span 2 or 3 days, things like that. Film all day film festivals, and things like that. So yeah, we got pretty elaborate. It was nice being kind of in the Kevin Smith headquarters, and then being able to work with all the other people here in New Jersey, in Red Bank and Middletown, like where the epicenter of where everything started.
Yeah, no, it was like from someone who you looked up to not only working with them, but being such a big part of their company
Yeah.
and their like, you grew the Kevin Smith, like, you grew it so much with the memorabilia because that's such, like, a huge part of it.
Yeah, that was cool. Like we built an online community on that website, so I think we gave Kevin Smith fans a place to gather, and a lot of them, all everybody became friends, around the world through the website. I think a couple of people met and got married, things like that. It was pretty crazy. It was
Wow.
pretty crazy, and then we would bring all those people here to New Jersey in person where they could meet Kevin and watch the movies with him and stuff like that. So I thought that was awesome.
Mm. So, what's your favorite, um do you have any special memories from working with Kevin Smith that you can share?
I have a few. I remember a lot. Whenever he shoots a movie, I try to get onto the set, just because I like hanging out, and I like watching him work, and I love watching the filmmaking process. And I just love hanging out in his sets. I usually find out where the craft service is, and I start eating all the candy and all that. I like that part too. And I was like, "Hey man, when's lunch?" Like, because they cater really good food on larger budget film sets, things like that. But I love, and usually he usually uses a lot of the same actors in his movies, so I like watching them. Like Jason Mewes or Jason Lee, or I haven't seen him in a while, but like Ben Affleck and Rosario Dawson. Sometimes you'll catch some really cool people because he's really good at getting some big names into his movies, which is cool. So I got to hang on the he put me in Jane Silent Bob Reboot. That was cool. We shot in New Orleans. That's definitely probably one of my most fondest memories. He put me in his last movie, and then he gave us lines too, which was cool. So I never had a real line in any movie. So he gave us lines. So I felt for one day I felt like an actor. I felt, it was we got a little trailer that was fun. And then all my friends were there too with me, so that was to be on a Kevin movie set with your friends is pretty amazing. That was pretty fun. That's a fond memory. Yeah, I remember, we threw an event here, and it was just me and him rearranging stuff at the comic book shop, and we were just kind of talking about the internet and stuff and I had just gotten there, so we were kind of talking about the future of what he was going to do and what I was going to do for him. That's a pretty fond memory. Going to a lot of his after parties was pretty awesome for so a lot of his movies. So um Yeah, I know a lot of weird random fun memories. We threw poker tournaments at the secret stash, like all night tournaments with his fans. Those are good memories as well. Um, yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting a whole bunch of them. There's that we My life's been pretty crazy, but yeah, it's been really fun working with him for sure.
Mhm. And, what was the comic like, how did the comic book men get started?
And that's a really fun memory too. So, prior to the Comic Book Man TV show, I was just, I was a tech guy. I ran his website. I uploaded his podcasts. I got like online ticketing through his events. So that was fun. Um, yeah, at some point we started podcasting in the late 2000s, and yeah, that led to Comic Book Man. Somehow I wound up on a reality TV show at his comic book store, and I was on the show. And I'm not an actor. I'm an IT guy. I do tech stuff, but um, the I Comic Book Man came about because Walking Dead got really big, and Walking Dead's based on a comic book. So AMC, the network, was like, "Hey, we need to do more comic book stuff. What do we do?" And they turned to Kevin, and they're like, "Hey, Kevin, what would we're trying to work on a comic book TV show. We don't have any ideas. What would you do?" And he was like, "Hey, you know that TV show Pawn Stars, where they're it takes place at that pawn shop in Vegas? Why don't you do a show like that, but instead of a pawn shop, you make it a comic book store, and then you have people come in and try to buy and sell old toys and comic books." And AMC was like, "That's a great idea. We're gonna do it." And yeah, they had to shoot like a pilot episode, and they needed some fill-in actors to see if it would even work. And Kevin was like, "Well, I have 4 guys who work at the store. Just put them in the pilot, and then, we could get real people. We get real actors later, real people later." And then when they shot it and they ran it back, they were like, "Hey, these guys are really good. We Where did you find them?" He's like, "Well, those are my employees. These guys work for me. They're also my friends." And they're like, these guys are awesome. Like, this is the show." And I remember, yeah, he called me. He was like, "Yeah, they want you on the show." I was like, "What are you talking about? I don't do TV. I'm not an actor." He's like, "Well, no, too late. They really liked what you did for the, thing we shot last summer. They're gonna make it into a real TV show." I was like, "Holy crap, that's crazy." That's cra He's like, I remember he was like, "Congratulations, you're gonna be on TV." I'm like, "I Okay." Like, I didn't really know how to react, because I think most people who get on TV or movies, like, they work for it, right? They're actors. They get trained.
Yeah.
They they go on auditions and stuff. We didn't have to do any of that. So I was like, that it was, we just kind of fell backwards into it. And I just thought that was funny, that we just got to be ourselves, and all of a sudden they put us on a TV show. So, but yeah, and I remember I was like, "What?" So wait, I was like, "So we're gonna be in the comic book shop, we're gonna buy and sell stuff, but mainly it's gonna be us 4 guys just talking about nerd stuff." I remember I was like, "Who's gonna watch this? Nobody wants to see that." Like, bunch of 4 old men in a comic book shop in New Jersey arguing about Star Wars and Back to the Future. And what I didn't know was that's exactly what people wanted to see. They had never been done before. And I didn't realize that around the country, maybe around the world, there are also people at, maybe flipping burgers or somewhere, or working at an office, and they were having those same conversations we were. And finally there was a TV show that they could relate to and watch because it spoke to them. I had no idea. I just thought it was us making fun of each other. I was like, "Nobody wants to watch that, right?" And a lot of people watched it, which was cool. So, um, yeah, that's definitely one of my fondest memories, shooting Comic Book Man with Kevin for sure. That's definitely unforgettable. I think I'm still so in disbelief that I was even on TV, that I don't even bring it up sometimes. Like, I don't even believe it happened sometimes.
Wow. So, do you have any, like, specific memories or specific episodes that stood out to you?
Yeah, definitely. The first and foremost, I think, there's an episode Stan Lee came in twice, but the first time he came in was just awesome. It was magical. Stan Lee created the Marvel universe. Stan Lee created my childhood. Stan Lee created my adulthood. Like, Stan Lee created a lot of the things that I know and love. and to actually meet the guy who did that and be able to talk to him, and, it was cool. It was, that's definitely one of my idols that I'd always wanted to meet and spend time with, and, I think the fact that, not only did we get to meet him, but we took photos with him, and then you see him, I'm on a TV show on an episode where he comes in, we get to meet him. I think that's cool because one day, my grandkids will be like, "Hey, grandpa, did you really meet Stan Lee?" And I'm like, "Sit down, let me hang on, I got something to show you." I can show them all the photos, and I can pop in the episode of the TV show, and they can see that, and, so that was definitely one of the most memorable episodes. There was there was another where, Ralph Macchio, Daniel-san from Cobra Kai or Karate Kid, he came in and, he taught, I was like, "Hey, can you teach me how to do the wax on, wax off? Can you teach me how to do it properly?" And he did. He was like, "No, no, you gotta start with this hand first. You gotta go counterclockwise, then you do this one clockwise." I was like, Alright." I was like, "Wait, I was starting with the wrong." He's like, "No, no, 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 you're doing it all wrong." He actually grabbed my arms and showed me how to do it, and as
That's
a kid growing up seeing that movie, I was like, this is crazy. This is this is insane." Um, there's another episode where, Peter Mayhew, the guy who played Chewbacca, came in, and that was cool. Like, if you would've told a 4-year-old Ming Chen that one day Chewbacca would come through the place that you work at and hang out with you on your TV show, I was like, "Okay, what the what hold back. Maybe one of those things will happen, but not all 3 of those. Like, that's impossible," and it did, so,
wow,
yeah. Yeah,
that's
those are
amazing.
3 very memorable episodes for sure.
Wow. That's so cool that, like, those people are so iconic, you would never even dream of
Yeah.
meeting them. That's
Yeah, we got very lucky for sure, and there, those are just 3. I think there are 20 or 30 really cool people that came in that that sometimes I even have to just remember who came in. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right." Um, you know, Lando Calrissian came in, or the Bionic Woman came in one day, or, it's so many cool people.
yeah, can you just share some more stories about, like, working on Comic Book Men since there's, like
Yeah, I remember, like, when we started shooting, a lot of people were like, "Well, did it take a long time to get used to the cameras?" And
oh, yeah,
I remember those first few days, I was like, "This is weird, like, I don't do this. Like, I'm not an actor, like, I don't know, I like, what am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? I don't know, am I doing a good job?" I had no idea, and, I remember, first couple days, I think I was being pretty self-conscious about, um I just didn't, I was getting, yeah, I guess people were telling me that it was good, but I had no clue, and, I think ultimately what happened was I became friends with, the cameraman and just everybody in the crew, so it just felt like we were just shooting with friends, and I think within 2 days, I got pretty comfortable. um, I was like, "Am I being funny enough?" I had so much self-doubt. I had no I'm like, "Am I gonna get fired on the first day?" Maybe they made a mistake. I remember there was so much self-doubt, but I think after 2 days, it's like, "Okay, 1, you don't need to try to be funny, just be your." It all boiled down to, what? It's reality. You're supposed to be yourself. You don't need to try to be funny, just be yourself and the funny will come out, or at the very least, they'll fix it in editing. They'll just edit it together to make it funny, and, so it's a little combination of both, but, um, yeah, I remember those first few days were like, "Man, I don't know, like, what if I get fired? Like, what if they, you know, what if they made a mistake? What if I'm not who they thought they were, who they thought I was?" I don't know. It was all silly. It was all really silly doubt, but, and it definitely worked out. But, yeah, I remember that. A lot of the storylines I remember there, every year before we shot the season, they're like, "Send us a list of stuff you wanna do this year." Like, maybe it'll happen. We can't make it all happen because a lot of your ideas are far-fetched, but come up with some ideas and we'll throw them around and we'll see if it happens. And, yeah, I remember a lot of the stuff I threw out, actually ended up happening. I think they liked a lot of my ideas, so that was good. And I was like, "Hey, where's my executive producer credit?" And, I didn't get one, but I'm like, "Come on." Yeah, things like that. But yeah, ultimately, I just love that, yeah, I get to spend hours with my friends just joking around, and then they put it on TV. I thought that was pretty cool. And then even when the show came out, I was like, "Is anybody gonna?" Well, that people started watching, but I was like, "Do people really like this? Like, do they like it?" And then I would meet people at comic cons going, "Hey, I really like the show." I was like, "Oh yeah, like what part?" And they would be very specific about the parts that they liked. And I was like, "Wow, they didn't just watch once; they watched multiple times. They talked to their friends about it." I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And how did your name on social media and stuff grow?
It was cool. I think shortly after the show, I was able to get verified, which is cool. Get the little blue check mark,
Yeah.
which isn't the biggest deal, but it is kind of a big deal, I guess. Especially sometimes I'll reach out to my favorite companies, like, or I'll post a photo with a product, and they're like, "Hey, we'll send you more." I'm like, "Oh, really?" It's like, "Ooh, this, yeah, that's pretty cool." Um, but yeah, I think I mean I can't remember how my follower. Actually I think it went up a lot. It was gradual. But I try to post good stuff too, just so the people who do happen to pay some kind of attention to me get their money's worth, I guess. Um, but yeah, it grew. Like it's not like huge or anything, but I haven't hit like a million or anything. But I uh I like sharing my life with people for sure. If I do something cool, I like to post about it. A lot of people are like, "Oh, what are you just bragging?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm bragging because this is cool. I got to, I got to be on a Kevin Smith movie. That's cool. Why wouldn't I post about that?" So,
Yeah, and people wanna know about it, it's so cool.
but I post a lot of food too. I like to eat, so I post a lot of food pictures for sure. Um, yeah, that's fun. And then when the episodes aired, like I would do live tweeting. I would live tweet along with people watching. That was fun interacting with people. Um, and I like going live. I love doing live streaming, like live Q&As. Yeah, because I can, because the technology exists. Why wouldn't I? If I have an extra half hour or so, why wouldn't I go on like Instagram Live or Facebook Live, or sometimes I'll hook up both. I'll get both going at the same time, and I'll be going back and forth answering questions. Because I like talking to people. I love hearing their stories. I love, and especially now, 2020, 2021, when we couldn't go anywhere, that kept me sane, doing things like this and live streaming and being able to interact with people outside of my house, while still being safe. That was huge in just my mental sanity. And plus we rolled it into the podcast studio that we run here now. We taught other people how to do this and help them create content as well. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, how did you begin a shared universe? How did that come to be?
So if you watch Comic Book Men, in between the scenes of us buying and selling stuff, they cut to the 5 of us sitting around a poker table talking into microphones. And, this show aired in 2012. So podcasting was kinda big, but not as big as it was now. But it showed us podcasting. We were podcasting about what just happened in the scene before, and that was Kevin's idea. He was like, "Hey, let's switch it up. Let's put these, like, kind of, between the scenes, let's do it at a podcast table. Let's tell people that we're podcasting about it." And we were like, "That's awesome. That's cool because that's what we did in real life. So we podcast around a poker table." But I remember a lot of people saw that and was like, "What are they doing? They're talking into microphones, like, but it doesn't look like they're on the radio." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, we're doing that we're podcasting." You and back then a lot of people hadn't heard of podcasts, so we kind of had to educate them. But once they heard what it was, they thought it was cool. So I think prior to that, if you watch any movie or TV shows, like no one ever podcasted before. So I'm pretty proud that we were, if not the first, then among one of the first TV shows or movie to depict people podcasting. Um, but and it was something we were really doing while we were shooting. We've been doing it since 2010, and it just hit a point where a lot of people were asking us like, "Hey, we listen to your podcast. We love your podcast. How do we make one?" I was like, "Oh, well, I can tell you what I did, but we only have 10 minutes. I can teach you in 10 minutes, I guess. You're not going to learn everything. And that's a lot to take in 10 minutes. we had always dreamed of opening up like a classroom or a school or a studio where we could really teach people how to podcast. And then we were like, "Hey, if we teach people how to podcast and we have the studio, maybe they'll come back every week and record their episodes, and then we could rent the studio out to them." And so that became kind of the genesis of a shared universe. And that was one of the things, and it really birthed from us having so much fun doing this live streaming podcasting. It was like, can we teach other people how to do this, and then they can have this much fun? And so that's what we did. That's so we bought microphones, we bought mixing boards, we bought computers. We found some cheap office space in Eatontown, which you've been to, and we put all of our pop culture memorabilia up on the wall, and we opened the doors, and we set up a website, and we welcome people in, so that's what we do. We teach about podcast. We rent the studio out to other podcasters so they can record their shows every week. We rent gear. We do all kinds of stuff here. We help people live stream. Basically, we're just encouraging the art of podcasting. And yeah, first I didn't even know if anybody would use this. I was like, maybe it's just us. I thought maybe nobody has as much fun as we do. Maybe this is just us. But slowly but surely, people started coming in. We started at the beginning of 2018, and now we have so many people. I'm constantly busy now, so it's pretty awesome. So I think our crazy little idea is working out for sure.
Yeah. So you have, one location in Eatontown. Did you open up another one?
Yeah, we opened up another one over at Bellworks in Hometown. Bellworks is this big giant 2 million square foot building that used to be AT&T Bell Labs, and they invented like cell phone technology there and a lot of telecommunication stuff. And they've turned it now into office space and retail. And there's really good pizza there, and there's coffee, and there's an escape room, and now there's podcasting because we opened a podcast studio there. And yeah, the building is it's very progressive. It's very tech first, and I feel we fit in very well there. So I really feel at home there. But I like having the two studios so we can teach even more people how to podcast.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been there. It's both locations are really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, so do you have any, like, special memories of doing podcasts, like, for Shared Universe?
Yeah, Kevin's been here, so that was cool. The day he called me up, he was like, "Hey, can I use the studio tomorrow?" For I'm like, "Sure. How long do you need?" He's like, like maybe 4 hours. I'm like, It's all yours. It's all yours. You can podcast as long as you want." It was pretty cool having him in and recording him. That was pretty cool. I mean, I think most of my memories are just people coming in for the first time and they're nervous and they're like, "Oh man, I've never done this before." And then, we teach them how to do this, and by the time they walk out, they're like, "Oh, that was awesome. Can we come back next week? Can we keep coming back?" And then, I see them even, a year later, 2 years later, they're still going, 3 years later, they're still going. Um, that's definitely very fun. The Hang On to Your Shorts Film Festival last year, because they couldn't do it in person, we did it all online, and we had like 4 computers going at the same time, and we had hard drives full of shorts, and we just ran that thing for we had 3 different live streams going, running, 8 over almost 8 hours worth of films and shorts, and we live streamed the awards ceremony. Pulling that off was a lot of fun. That's definitely a great memory. I was like, wow, we're programming an entire film festival, a whole what usually took over the whole weekend in Asbury. We're doing this all in one day. It's like, can we pull this off? And I was like, I think we can do this. I think we have the technology exists, and we pulled it off. That was definitely a really cool memory.
So
And then
what
having you guys in, I remember you got the whole class came in,
Yeah.
and we podcasted, and we ate pizza, and it was just a fun time. And I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah, the field trips, those were so much fun. I miss that.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite part of running the podcast studios?
I love that we've been able to help so many podcasts either launch, or a lot of them had started. They tried to start it by themselves, and then they either got frustrated, or they just stopped for one reason or another, and we were able to inspire them to come in here and get their shows going again, and now their shows are even better than they were before. um I love that. I love seeing people having fun and recording their shows. And I love, even though I'm not in the room, sometimes I'll just peek my head in the other room, like, okay, you guys are doing good. Okay, great. I love hearing, you hear a lot of laughter, just a lot of friendly arguments, a lot of geek debates, things like that. That really makes me happy. That I was like, wow, that crazy idea we had is coming true. That you know that the fun that we had, we kind of passed it on to other people. I was like, hey, you should do this. You should try this. You should start a podcast. You should have as much fun as we do. And it comes true. I love that. I think that's cool.
Wow. Do you have any advice for, like, this is students are gonna be watching this, like,
Yeah.
most people and students, so do you have any advice for students?
Yeah, I think, if you're a filmmaker or you just even if you love whatever you love, if you love wrestling, you love video games, you love music, you should start a podcast about it. Grab another friend who is as into music or wrestling or sports or whatever. Grab a co-host and just start. You don't need a bunch of fancy equipment. You can do like we're doing. You could record on StreamYard like we're doing right now. You can go out and buy a couple microphones and a recorder for, like under $100. You can record your first episode on your Memos app on your phone even, and just start. It's not hard and it's so much fun. And you can bring other friends on as guests every so often, but I mean, the sky's the limit. I think everybody should be doing this. If you're a filmmaker, you could start a podcast or promote your film and talk to your cast members and crew. You guys can tell stories about how hard it was to get made and everything you had to struggle through. And I think that's cool because once you release that episode, other filmmakers are going to hear it and they'll be inspired by it. So, I think everybody should be starting a podcast for sure. And yeah, it really isn't that hard. And if you ever have questions, you can contact me. My email's at ashareduniverse.com. It's on the website. I'm willing and happy to help anybody who wants to get started.
Oh, and how do you know Mr. Cullen?
Well, we had met, through being fans of Kevin. We'd met in passing, I think, at film festivals and awards shows. But I really got to know him because he started coming in here and podcasting weekly. They did a Hang On to Your Shorts podcast, and they came in. They took a class here about 3 years ago, and then they would come in almost every week for years with different filmmakers promoting the film festival. And yeah, we have a lot of mutual interests. We love film, we love pop culture. We love cool stuff. um, we love eating good food, I guess, so that's cool. And, yeah, I remember one day he's like, "Hey, will you come to my class and talk about podcasting?" I was like, "Really?" It's like, "That could be cool." I'd never done it before, like, up in front of a class, but we did. I remember doing it, and I was like, "Wow, this is really fun." Like, so I think I've been there, 2 or 3 times since, and, yeah, it's been really fun. Yeah, it's definitely been a fun friendship for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I just wanted to loop back to that because I forgot to ask.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
do you wanna plug any of your social medias or
Oh yeah, totally. If you want to learn about podcasting or you want to start one, our studio is called A Shared Universe. So it's ashareduniverse.com is the website. And if you ever have any questions or anything, I'm always available. The social media for is at A Shared Universe, pretty much across the board. And then my personal stuff is at Ming 37. So it's MINGCHEN 37. That's all my personal stuff. Twitter, Instagram, I think that's my TikTok name too, and Facebook, like Snapchat, everything.
or, like, on one of the field trips, we helped you make your
Right.
first
Yeah, you did. We did a dance called the Renegade, and I was not very good at it. I tried though. I tried. I think it looked. I even looked better that I was not that good at it. So I'm trying to learn from you. You got all the dances down.
Yep, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's all my questions. Do you wanna say anything else to close it out?
Yeah. No. Thank you so much. This is cool. I know when I'm getting interviewed by you that, it's a good day. So, usually it's at, like opening of a movie's restaurant or grand opening of a, comic book shop or, or it's usually something fun. So I know I'm having a good day when you're interviewing me, Sophia. So thank you.
Thank you. Yep, so that's it. Thank you for joining me.
Of course.